let's have a nice cup of TRE in the afternoon with Hannah Murray.
Joining us on the line now is Richard Ashworth. He's possibly best known for introducing authentic Chinese imperial feng shui to BBC TV's Housebusters and for his book, The Feng Shui Diaries. His latest book, I Talk to the Animals, is a definitive guide to the 4 pillars of destiny. It's a comprehensive guide to the Ba Zi, which is sometimes misleadingly referred to as Chinese horoscopes. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, it's great to have you with us. So how did you get into all of this?
That's a very good question. A long time ago, I was doing a workshop with an American psychologist, healer, group leader, whatever word you want to use, called Chuck Spezzano. And it was dealing with biblical archetypes. So I'm going to get weird right away. So travel with me. We were looking at biblical archetypes at the time of Desert Storm with a view to saving us from World War III. World War III didn't happen. You have me to thank. So in that process, I met someone who pointed out to me what I'd seen was there were parallels between what happened in the 1990s and what happened in the 1930s. You know, the rise of dictators, all sorts of stuff happening in the Balkans, and so on and so forth. I was fascinated by this because I'm a history nerd, and he pointed out to me that the Chinese Ganzi cycle is 60 years long. So you would expect echoes of events that happened in the 1930s and the 1990s, and it blew my mind. And I investigated, and I discovered that this was the key to this was a thing called Ba Zi, which is works in a 60-year cycle, and that its particular main application was of charts drawn up for people for a variety of purposes. I mean, in China, they've been drawing up Ba Zi charts for a baby as soon as it's born, for the best part of 2,000 years. I didn't know any of that. But it saved me from, I'd spent a lot of time dealing with a lot of very strange people over about 20 or 30 years before that. And it saved me reinventing the wheel. There was this model here that was the most powerful healing discipline I'd come across. And feng shui, which of course I'm sure you know, is about space. Ba Zi is about time, but it's kind of the same thing, only about time, if you like. Does that make sense?
So, absolutely. So how does a Ba Zi chart compare to like an astrological birth chart, for example?
I am very bad on Western astrology, but what a Ba Zi chart will do is to show you it has 5 what are called pillars. So if we take this year, the pillar for this year is a wood snake. You probably knew that. You would have come across that, I expect. It's a snake year. It's a wood snake year. There are 5 different types of snakes. So the pillar is made up of a stem, which is the wood bit, and a branch, which is the snake bit. So any particular date, any particular year, and any year will have a pillar that describes it. This year, as I say, is a wood snake. Next year will be a fire horse. A moment of birth will have a very distinct signature, because days, hours, months, and years all work in a cycle of 60. So what we can do is to calculate the particular 4 pillars that apply to a particular person, and your Ba Zi will be pretty much unique. It's kind of a signature. And within it, it will tell you things about ancestral patterns, DNA patterns, weaknesses, strengths, likely opportunities, those kinds of things. You can pick all sorts of things out of it. But it is, if we think of healing as being a spectrum from actual change to performance enhancement, it was and remains the most powerful model I've ever come across for healing, for changing people's lives, for healing heartbreaks, that kind of stuff.
So is it something that you'd only need to do once for a person because it's to do with their the date they were born and the time they were born, unlike an astrological chart, for example, where the planets are always moving and it can be updated? Is this something that can be updated?
The original chart, I think, like a Western chart, is pretty much fixed, but the influences upon it change in exactly the same way that Western astrology does. But Chinese astrology is so sophisticated, it hardly deals literally in planets at all. It deals in the animals, like rat and ox and so on and so forth, and the elements, which are wood, fire, earth, and so on. And yes, I mean, my clients would typically come back to me once a year to see the update, what the likely, the likely year, the year is likely to hold for them. So
Okay.
yeah.
And how do you combine Bazi with feng shui?
Well, Bazi tends to be diagnosis and feng shui tends to be prescription. In other words, we can tell from the Bazi what kind of house someone should live in, how it should be oriented, where they would be best putting their bedrooms, and so on and so forth. So the Bazi will point out those kinds of things, and the feng shui can be one way of dealing with the puzzles that the Bazi sets up.
Okay. And your book is called I Talk to the Animals. Why has it got that title?
Well, because it's all about the Chinese zodiac animals, and I talk to the animals. And I thought it was a catchy kind of a title, from the, what was it, Dr. Dolittle? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Dolittle, yeah, right. And the push me pull you, do you remember? So I was obviously referring to that. I thought it might be catchy, but it's because when you get deeply into this, it is not a technical thing. It is a psychological, spiritual, emotional thing. And there are technical rules as to how you draft it and what things mean. But if you're really approaching it carefully as an act of service, it's kind of a dialogue with the animals. They're kind of saying, I don't mean they're talking to me in any literal sense, not like, Jiminy Cricket or something, but there are particular things that the placing timing of animals will say that will tell me about people, and particularly about moments of decision, which is probably the most important use of a Bazi. It will tell you when you made typically what people call limiting decisions, or even good decisions, but you can pick up on when and why and what you might do about it.
Yeah. Before the interview, you asked me for my birth date and the time of my birth and everything, and I'm slightly nervous because it says on the information for the book, warning, he may make you cry.
Yeah.
So
this is interesting, actually,
Okay.
because your Bazi is of a particular shape, and the last when my first book came out, I did radio interviews with 8 or 9 different radio stations on a particular day, and I had this information for each of them. I spoke to, what's it called, gay radio, and I said very innocently, "You have lots of casual friendships," and they fell about laughing. But I was just reading it. I wasn't trying to be clever or anything. I spoke to a guy. I had to be very careful with this because he's still around. I think he was working for BBC Radio Scotland. And he said, "Okay, smartass, what are you going to tell me?" And I said, "Well, it looks to me like your relationship with your father has been a really difficult one. It kind of runs through your whole life." And he cried live on radio.
Wow.
Because like your Bazi, his day stem was the yin version of the year stem. And what that meant was, well, in his case, his father had died before he was born.
Okay.
And in your case, there is something about your Bazi which is very much about living up to your mother.
Wow. That's weird. That's really weird. That's amazing for you to pick up on that.
Well, it's just good drafting, really. And I mean, your Bazi is a very interesting one. I would expect you to be beautiful. I'd expect you to be very bright, very bright. There's a lot of metal here, which speaks of someone with good processing. So you could have been, lawyer, MP, architect, all sorts of things. But it's interesting that you've chosen showbiz instead. I mean, how this fits in with your actual life would be very interesting to me. You clearly have a sense of humor. You're a metal monkey. Metal monkey is the sign of the stand-up. And what monkeys need to know is, yes, they're funny, but try not to hurt people.
Okay.
It's the thing you have to, it's like taking a mickey can only go so far.
Yeah.
And a joke doesn't have to have a but. I have monkey in my buzzy as well. I have to be careful not to upset people by mistake. Okay, to do it on purpose. I don't want to do it by mistake. And you have rooster, which is about beauty. All of these are about logic, proportion, good intellectual processing, possibly fashion, possibly glamour. I mean, I don't know whether that's sexist. That's kind of a yin version of it. But you have terrific reasoning. You'd be good at Sudoku. That kind of thing. And this is you as a package are kind of arresting because I don't know, people wouldn't necessarily expect off the page for you to be as smart as you are. You're probably kind of people are probably kind of surprised by you. I mean, does that sound patronizing? I'm old enough to be
not at all. That's really interesting. And I mean, how do you get all that from looking at someone's birth date and the time that they were born? Where does that all come from?
Well, as I said, each of the year, the month, the day, and the hour will be represented by a pillar. So I will go to a Chinese calendar. Let me show you. I will go to a Chinese calendar, which looks like that. There's a good beaten up one. I've got ones that aren't quite so beaten up.
Okay, yeah, so it's long lists.
Yes. Well, what this thing is, it looks more complicated than it is. It's the cycle of 60, which is called the Ganzi cycle, the 60-year repetitive thing. There's also a solar calendar, also a lunar calendar, and they're all on one page, so it looks more complicated than it really is, but that is all that it is. But each of those characters have meaning. So it's based in the observation by a series of Chinese geniuses several thousand years ago that the cycle of energy in a day reflects the cycle of energy in a year. In other words, if you think about it, there is a dawn to the year, just as there is a spring to the day. In the middle of the year and the middle of the day, it's liable to be hotter, brighter. We're liable to be outgoing and so on and so forth. And they use this as a way of measuring time. And that's where the zodiac animals that you I'm sure will have known, will have heard about, originate. So the day starts with a tiger, and then it goes on to a rabbit, and then it goes on to a dragon, and so on, moving from what would be called wood, which means movement, getting up in the day, starting to do stuff. So obviously that the feng shui advice, the Bazi advice is you want to get stuff done, get up early in the morning. That's what wood is. It's moving stuff. And it's these five elements, and each of the 12 animals belong to one of those. And so there's a cycle of those. There's a cycle of 60 because there are also 10 what are called stems, which mix with them, which come from another way of counting time. You put the two together and you get echoes and repetitions, which are spooky. And particularly you find moments of choice. And there's what's called the big fate. And I talk about this as being a healing discipline, which is really its real value. I mean, it differs from Western astrology, I think, and I may not being fair, in that it's not really about tall, dark strangers. It's much more about decision making. So in the case of your Bazi, for instance, something happened when you were 3, almost precisely when you were 3. Am I right? Yes, almost precisely when you were 3, which is a water sheep, which is something about sensitivity, something about your parents, probably most of these things, we learn so much from being with our parents. So, I mean, in a sense, the first big decisions people make will tend to be about their upbringing. Something happened around age 3, might have been positive, might have been negative, certainly of psychological importance. And its impact, it could be to do with a sibling, it could be to do with moving. Again, it probably relates to your relationship with your mother, particularly to do with your mother. Something of that sort. I mean, you may not want to go too deep into it out here in front of lots of people, but there will be a very important thing that happened around the age of 3.
Wow.
And what can be, if that were something which defined your life, and to some extent it will have, but for many people, the beginning of what's called the big fate, which is a calculation, is the first time they make a really limiting decision about themselves. So the first decision is very often, oh, it's all my fault. And that can be very early, sometime between 0 and 10. The second decision may be, and there's nothing to be done about it. And the third decision is, you know what, I'm going to retreat into my hole. And a lot of lives look like that. But what you can do with the Bazi is to find that moment, and with a lot of care and delicacy and, appropriate approaches, you can take someone back to that point and within certain limits, bring them back to factory settings. I mean, you can heal heartbreaks and make dreams come true. That's what this will do, handled properly.
Amazing. I was going to say, because obviously I don't remember anything about when I was 3. So you help people to do that, do you? To sort of like regression in a way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was an NLP master practitioner before I ever found the Chinese stuff. That's what I was doing at the workshop during Desert Storm. So I'm qualified in hypnotherapy. And the thing, I mean, hypnotherapy is not dangling a watch in front of you or doing the thing from the Jungle Book. Trust in me.
Yeah.
Hypnotherapy is just a question of getting close enough to someone that you can kind of pull their soul out and polish it off and put it back.
Sounds so easy.
I mean, it depends how well I get on with the person, but sometimes we can go very, very deep and make the most extraordinary changes. I say make the most extraordinary changes that they can follow. I'm not sure what happens with whom. I mean, broadly, someone needs to make a decision to change. But the Bazi will take you back to those formative decisions where you took a left when you should have taken a right or whatever. And in some senses, change it literally, but certainly reframe it.
Yeah. Wow, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because it's kind of different. I don't want to say different branches, but it's similar things, that processes that you might go through in therapy, going back to your childhood, trying to understand things that may have happened. And, so many people go through lives and never ask themselves those questions, never ask themselves the impact that their parents' relationship, the way their parents treated them, etc., the impact that has on their lives as an adult. A lot of people don't even think about it, but it's really important.
Absolutely central. We're making decisions all the time. I'm told that human beings make 10,000 decisions a day. I mean, I'm not sure who counted them. But
someone with too much time on their hands.
Well, exactly. That's right. But life is about decisions, and yes, I mean, I would consider myself to be a healer. I mean, if we say on a spectrum between actual change and performance enhancement, I'm a healer. My job is to heal heartbreaks and make dreams come true. And, sometimes I manage to do exactly that. And that's what I Talk to the Animals, my new book, is about. I have to remember to keep plugging it. Is how to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I when I say it's how to do that, it's technically how to do that. As I say, I think in the introduction, this will show you this will give you all that you need to be able to construct a Bazi chart, and all that you need in order to interpret. And that's a beginning. And I've been doing this 26, 27 years. But this is an opportunity to learn how to do it. And by the way, I'm prepared for a limited time to coach anybody by email who tries to work it out, tries to follow all the instructions and get stuck. So I am serious about your being able to do that. And as I say, for me, the most powerful healing tool I've ever come across. I mean, I have seen people change in a huge way just by seeing a decision, and by seeing where they are now and how they got there.
Fascinating. Well, if people want to find out more, they definitely need to get a copy of I Talk to the Animals, a definitive guide to the 4 pillars of destiny. It's available on our website, tre.radio, and it's by Richard Ashworth, who we've been chatting with today. Richard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.